we're going to start with the warm-up here. So we're going to go into what's called cat and camel pose. And if you're on a hardwood floor like me, by the way, you can just fold up a towel to put underneath your knees. And the goal here is to really stretch out your core, your muscles, your spine, to bring blood flow, get everything circulating, to prepare you for the work that we're going to be doing today for our core. So our main focus for today will be trying to strengthen our gluteus medius muscle and our core in general. So a lot of people don't really realize, but the gluteus medius muscle, that muscle right above like the hip bone, is responsible to stabilize the pelvis. So it really does help with core strength. And if this muscle is weak, it can lead to a lot of different problems. Now we're going to switch here to doing the reverse in a way. So we're going to be doing a side to side kind of cat and camel. So it's a slight modification. So you're trying to think of bringing your ear to your shoulder and then bringing your shoulder to your same hip on that same side you just bent your head. So if you were to look at yourself from an aerial view, you're making the letter C with your spine. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. You may feel a little awkward, but just do your best. Now here's where things really get interesting. We're going to do a spiral. So we're kind of rotating our rib cage and our neck in opposite directions. Again, if you can just rotate one at a time, that is fine by me. We just want to get the muscles working and the blood flow going. And that wraps up our warm-up. We're going to move on to what's known as bird dogs. So this is advanced, so if you are not used to this movement, I highly suggest you go to the intermediate core video, and I'll leave that link below. Because the goal of this exercise is to keep perfectly still with your spine. The only thing you want moving is your extremities. So your opposite knee will make contact with your opposite elbow. And when you're moving to reach outward, you're not twisting your back, you're not arching your back, you're not letting your core get all floppy and sloppy. You're keeping everything very tight, very clean, and very precise. So let's switch sides. So the entire time here, I do not, sorry, I had to move a little bit here because the table is in the way. So in this entire time, I do not want you to do anything with your back. Your core has to stay so tight that it's only your legs and arms moving. I know that's very repetitive, and I'm basically saying the same thing in a different way, but I want you to constantly focus on that in your head. Keep your belly button to your spine, core tight as if someone's punching you in the stomach, and squeeze your pelvic floor as if you're trying to interrupt the flow of urination when you're going to the bathroom. We're going to switch sides again. Another part of this is you have to maintain good balance here. So pick a spot on the floor, keep your eye on that, and stare at that. That will help with your balance. And again on the other side. Imagine you have a broom glued to your tailbone, to your middle back, and your head, and it's a perfect straight line. Now, just to mentally prepare you, we're going to be moving into the lateral planks. So get into this position here. If you are using a towel like I am, just remove the towel and you can place it right underneath your hip or your knee, whatever is better for you, or even under your elbow. And we're just going to gradually increase the difficulty here. So you may choose to do this with your knees bent like I just showed you, or you can do it with your legs straight out, one leg behind or one leg in front, or your feet stacked on top of one another, or your top leg suspended out in the air. So whatever level of difficulty you think is best suitable for you, do that. But if this is your first time doing the video, please try to follow as closely to what I'm doing as possible. And then from there, you can increase difficulty once you know what to expect. And if this position is too hard, like I mentioned previously, you can go onto your knees instead. And let's switch sides. So if you have a history of back pain, please be very conscious about what you're doing when you're turning each side. So try to keep nice and straight. See how my head is in line with my tailbone, which is in line with my ankles. I'm not letting my hips sink. I'm keeping my hips raised up towards the ceiling. I'm keeping my core very tight. I'm squeezing my pelvic floor, and that's what I want you to think of. Tight core, pelvic floor. Tight core, pelvic floor. When you're working out, you have to constantly repeat these things in your head so that you don't forget about it. Because what happens is when we're exercising, we start thinking about other things and get sidetracked. Now we're going to put top leg in front. So previously we put the leg behind. Now we're going to switch things up slightly and put the leg in front. And for even greater difficulty, if you can, raise your top arm so it is in line with the rest of your body as I'm showing here. Remember to keep breathing and repeat tight core, pelvic floor. Tight core is if someone's about to punch you in the gut. And remember about the pelvic floor, you're trying to hold from allowing any more urine to escape out the exit. Again, top leg on the other side, top leg in front. For added difficulty, reach your arm over your head. Remember to breathe, tight core, and pelvic floor. It's a constant game of reassessing yourself, and reassessing yourself. I know I will get very repetitive, and if you watch any of my other videos in the past, you know I am very repetitive, but repetition is the key to learning, guys. And I don't believe in saying something new or even something that you guys heard of before just one time. It's worked for me, it's worked for my clients, so I continue to do that. Now this time, I want you to bend your knees so that your heels are in line with your glutes. So this, you're gonna raise your knee first to the ceiling and then try to lift your hips off. So squeeze your glutes to lift your knee to the ceiling. I don't want you to just lift your knee mindlessly. Think about what you are doing with intention. If you're doing this video, that's step number 1. But you have to do things properly and with good intention for it to work. So squeeze that glute, lift that knee up to the ceiling, and now squeeze the bottom glute and lift your hips up into this position. So let's try and do them together now. Excellent. So we want this movement to be slow. We want this movement to be controlled. We want this to be precise, and we want to make sure that we're feeling both glutes on the same side. So we're squeezing our glutes together as if we're trying to hold a penny or a dime in between those parts of your glutes. Okay, so really be purposeful here. And don't let yourself just plop down. You want to control the landing. Again, let's start from step 1. Squeeze that glute, let the knee lift up towards the ceiling. And keep in mind, guys, here, another side note, my hips are very flexible. I was a dancer and a gymnast. So if you think you have to get your knee to the same height as I am, but your body is rotating up towards the ceiling and your hips are moving backwards, I do not want that. If you can only lift your knee even half or a quarter of what I'm doing, but you can feel your glutes back there where I'm pointing, contracting, that is the point of the whole exercise. You have to feel your muscles engage. So squeeze those glutes together. Let that squeezing lift your knee up towards the ceiling. And now squeeze the bottom of your glutes to lift your hips up to the ceiling. So be very intentional, be very mindful. And I keep my hand here right on top of my glute there so I can feel if it's actually physically contracting. And now let's put it all together 5 times. So squeeze up and slowly control down. And squeeze up and slowly control. So notice how I'm doing a more powerful type of movement on the way up and slowing it down on the recovery. This is because we're working 2 different types of contractions, concentric and eccentric. Eccentric is the landing part when we're recovering from the exercise, and that's stressing the muscle and contracting the muscle as it's lengthening. So I really want to make sure to work that to strengthen the muscle as best as possible. So now in the same position, we're going to go right away into the full exercise. If this is too much for you, you can back it up to what it was before, or pause the video if you need a break. Best thing about doing these workouts at home is you can make them your own. So now hold it and just lift your top leg. So you can either keep it bent or straighten it out completely. It's up to you. And as you progress further along this video, you can even add ankle weights. But the most important thing is that you are trying to mimic what I'm doing as best as possible so that you can make sure you are doing it as best you can. And if you have any questions, do not be afraid to leave those questions in the comments below or email me personally. Now switch to the other side. We're going to repeat the same exact thing. So make sure those heels are right in line with the glutes. Power up, control down. We're almost done here. So if this is too much for you, I would rather quality. So again, if you need to pause it, don't worry. Your body will get stronger. Our bodies are amazing because they adapt to the changing circumstances placed upon us, positively or negatively. So that means if you work out your body and you stretch your body and you move it, it will respond to that, so you're able to do those things. But in reverse, if you just sit all day and don't do anything, your body will stiffen up. Let's do what's called a reverse plank. So in this position, it's best to keep your fingers pointed towards your heels. And if this transition of bending your knees was too much for you, you can just go right into this crap. You can start off with your knees bent and then go into this position. So this work is very good for glute activation. So you have to think that you're squeezing your glutes so much and squeezing your glutes so hard together that that squeezing action is what is lifting your hips towards the ceiling. You should barely feel your hamstrings contracting. You'll feel them a little bit, but you want to be stressing your glutes so much that those are what are sore the next day. So if the next day when you're sore because of what's known as delayed onset muscle soreness, you should feel it primarily in your glutes and the sides of your hips. And if you do not, that means you were working out muscles that shouldn't be contracting. So please, you have to be very, very mindful of what you are doing when you're working on your own. So as best you can, try to squeeze those glutes. And again, you're squeezing them. See how it's a little slower? It's not like I'm just lifting my glutes. It's because I'm trying to squeeze them. And then right at the end, I'm thrusting my pelvis forward and tucking it forward to the ceiling for that final activation of the glute max muscle. So see how I'm kind of curling at the end? I want you to do the same as well. Again, squeeze that pelvic floor, keep the core tight. You should be sweating at this point. You're squeezing and holding your muscles so much. Now, this point, you're going to stretch out. You're going to try to imagine you have somebody grabbing your wrists and somebody grabbing your ankles, and it's pulling you apart to give you a very nice feeling of traction. So as best you can, try to straighten out your elbows so your wrists can touch the floor. If that's not comfortable for you, you can put a pillow or something underneath your wrists, or even a pillow underneath your knees to put your back in a more comfortable position. So breathe here with your belly. You should be breathing, so at least 4 seconds. Inhale is your belly rising to the ceiling, and the last second is your chest rising. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And if you need more than a few seconds to rest and recover, please do not be afraid to take whatever time you need to recover. As always, guys, I want to thank you for completing this video. You are definitely on a good track, and I know if you keep up with it 2 to 3 times a week, you will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And once you do, and you do need a more difficult video, check out my other YouTube videos that I offer, or even leave comments in the comment section below of requests of videos you would like to see me release in the future. And don't forget to subscribe, because if you do, then you're definitely not going to be missing any future videos that I release in the future.